It's such a joy to talk about developing our gifts, because many of us have not actually had a lot of people around us that we could rely on. In all of my experience, the major theme that I witness with people who have very developed gifts is that they were forged in deep suffering, isolation, hardship, really big experiences, often when they're quite young, within the first 20 years of our lives. And that those pivotal big experiences that meant we couldn't actually rely on the people around us, and the people that are normally the ones that we can rely on, actually meant that it necessitated us to really draw within. That when we were asking what's going to happen, and am I safe, and where do I go now, and what's the truth, that we actually really asked those questions so intently within ourselves that what happened was they were revealed. And all of you will have experiences where you genuinely didn't know information that you needed to know, either for your life's sake or for the protection of your family, or really, really pivotal experiences. So I just want to underline that gifts are often forged in hardship, and I just want to bring a lot of love and acceptance for that. That a lot of the people that, well, everyone, I mean, I haven't met anybody that hasn't really suffered, do you know what I mean? A human that hasn't suffered, I mean, I don't know if they exist on earth. So, you know, your own personal suffering, I really want to suggest, was crafted to really support you, to sink into the truth of who you were, really tune into your gifts within yourself. And because of the dire necessity of the circumstances you were in, that you were able to receive and connect with something that you have since allowed yourself to rely upon. So tonight in this gift development workshop, we're going to be talking through some of the experiences that have really influenced our view on our gifts, which is going to be a big contributor to how we perceive them now. We're going to be talking about why we need our gifts so much, and you hear me talking a lot about gifts, and a lot of the pivotal decisions in my life I would not have been able to make without leaning on my gifts and allowing them to confirm me. So we'll be talking about these 5 steps to developing our gifts: acknowledging them, paying attention to them, trusting the information we receive through them, acting on that information. Like, that's a whole nother step. Like, that's a whole nother stage, eh? Like, to actually allow ourselves to trust the information and then act on it. And then the 5th step, I think, is really, really important, because then we're just going to come back to repeating that process, is actually offering thanks for the blessings that we receive and for the help that we receive. So if you want to think of these 5 steps as being a spiral, it doesn't matter where you're at. All of us can improve on deepening into every one of these steps. And I almost like the placement of how they tend to build and strengthen one another. So the biggest reason why I'm so big on talking about our gifts is that it's our birthright to feel safe, loved, guided, and protected. And in my work as a heart healer, some of the major issues and challenges that my clients are facing is because they have not felt safe when they're younger. They did not feel loved and supported and seen, and they often didn't have people that they could rely upon for direction. And so those circumstances often birth our connection to our gift. And so as adults, I think it's such a beautiful blessing to be able to give ourselves an experience of feeling safe, feeling loved and cared for and guided and protected. Because we know the contrasting experiences where we didn't have that, it's such a beautiful experience to be able to feel that now as adults. So really what it comes down to when it comes to trusting our gifts is actually our ego dialogue around what your gifts are, how you can use them, how accurate the information is. So there's going to be a section where we're going to turn the recording off, and we're going to talk together really openly about what our fears are preventing us from trusting our gifts, and also what is the healing truth that will allow us to pay more attention, acknowledge, and utilize the information we're receiving through our gifts. So thank you all for being here. As we're settling in, would you like to type in and tell one another and me why you really wanted to come to the gift development workshop tonight, just as honestly as you can from your heart? what is the reason that you really wanted to be here and really allow yourself to have this experience? So nice to see you all here. Yeah, I think I hear very commonly from people who are really gifted that they've had some really big experiences where people have been very terrified by what they've shared, or that we fear persecution or being ridiculed or criticized. And I haven't actually experienced much of that, which I find really interesting. That I feel like I've been quite sheltered from actually hearing any of that criticism. What I did experience for myself was having a knowing that was ignored by the adults around me, that I knew things and I shared things. I was called a little spy because I was relaying information about what I knew was happening that I shouldn't really have been able to know and perceive. So I did hold shame about my knowing, and my clairsentience is one of my greatest gifts. It's the strongest and clearest for me. So having that part of me be really judged and criticized was really challenging. So yeah, great. It's lovely. Someone is really sharing the reason why she wanted to come to this workshop was that she fears making other people uncomfortable. So I love the honesty that's here. Someone else is sharing, I wanted to get clarity on my gifts. I fear being rejected. Really beautiful, and allow this time to really reflect on, why do I want to develop my gifts? Why did I want to come to this workshop? And if you want, what do I really want to get out of it? Many of you know that I had a terrible pattern of breakups, and it was only this feeling within my body, claircognizance, getting that divine kind of idea dropping in the top of my head, and my clairsentience, that knowing deep in my womb, in my tummy, that my husband was the right person for me, that allowed me to open up to his love. Otherwise, I would have shut it down and walked away. That's what I, as an individual, would have done if I wasn't able to perceive through my gifts that he is the right person for me. And we were reflecting today, it's his birthday tomorrow, and it's about 10 years since he started calling me and we started courting. So it's our 10-year wedding anniversary, and I just feel so grateful that without my gifts, I would not know who I am. I would not have known who to marry. I would not have known when to have my children. And we seriously can't navigate these big decisions in our lives without having something that we can trust and rely upon. And I know that's what our spiritual gifts are for all of us. So someone's sharing, I'm studying about my gifts and needing to develop further guidance and help on developing them. I've experienced abuse of many things, gifts run in my family, but sometimes people wouldn't acknowledge. I'm afraid to really step into them fully and want to overcome this fear for myself, afraid to change. Thank you for your honesty, sweetheart. Hi everyone, my reason is for a long time I ignored the knowing. I did not trust fully what was happening. I've been learning to trust what I receive. I want to develop these gifts knowing that it's a positive gift to receive these gifts. Lovely. Another person is sharing, give myself the first step to open up to the gifts I have in a safe place. Lovely. I want to really share, I want to really develop my gifts and get clarity on them so that I know how to move forward with them and to stop letting the fear of people knowing who I really am stop me from moving forward. Yes. And the reason why I really want you to hear this, and I want you to know who you're hanging out with tonight. I want you to hear the hearts of these beautiful people that are here joining live. And for everyone listening to the replay, I want you to know who's actually here and who wants to develop these parts, because there's going to be things expressed here that you're going to relate to, and that's really beautiful for all of us. Someone sharing, I'd love to feel support that I could really rely on regardless. That's a huge one for me, the person that has shared that. Safety and knowing that there is support there is such a beautiful feeling. I feel my gifts will lead me to a knowing, a certainty in my decisions, a real certainty of who I am. Beautiful. This is magnificent, everyone. Absolutely beautiful. So you all know that I talk a lot about our spiritual gifts are actually an integral part of our identity. Okay, so just imagine these parts of ourselves, whether you've been clairvoyant and seen auras or visions or angels or spirits, and you've actually for fear or any type of reason decided to shut that down or turn it off, you've actually closed down to a part of who you are, okay, to a part of your truth. So someone's sharing, I've only just recently heard the word clairsentience, and I feel like I may have this gift. But as a young person, my mum told me it was against God, and I was raised strict Catholic, so I shut down all my gifts. Honestly, it's the pivotal experiences like this in our past that influence all of us to shut down our gifts. And I was raised in a very Orthodox religion and still go to church as a Latter-day Saint, as a Mormon, and these sorts of gifts are not openly accepted amongst members of my church, and that doesn't concern me whatsoever because I know that they're true for me. But I've accepted my gifts as an adult, and I didn't have a lot of messaging about my gifts as a little girl. So some of us who have been raised in these environments where our parents fear our gifts, or the church community around us fear our gifts, it's very common right now. I think half of my clientele right now are awakening psychics, and there's a very common theme happening where these little children had such a powerful knowing that the other people around them could sense it, and they feared it, and they shut down these little children. Okay, because what we don't understand, we fear. And that's why I really wanted to talk about our gifts and developing them, because the more we can have new voices and new perspectives actually dialoguing this, the safer we can all feel knowing and accepting who we are. So that's the person who just shared that about your clairsentience. You're definitely clairsentient, just to like confirm that for you, babe. Yes, you are. So the way I like to think of spiritual gifts personally is that anything that you can do physically, you can do spiritually. So if we can see with our eyes, we can see with our spiritual eyes and discern and visually see spiritual information, okay? So if we can think with our mind, we can spiritually think with that part of ourselves and receive divine ideas and have divine epiphanies. And so just as our ears will hear the sounds and the voices around us, clairaudience is being able to spiritually hear from angels or guides or God or any one of the sacred guardians that stands to watch over us. There are people, like, we can physically help and do so much with our hands, and there are some people that I've met that really have power being emitted from their hands spiritually as well as physically. So I think when we think of our heart, it really is the life source of our body. And likewise, many of us have very knowing hearts. If you're an empath, you have the capacity to use your heart to see and perceive the living spiritual nature of somebody else. So I think it's really nice to see the crossover between these physical parts of ourselves and their spiritual application. And I think for me, it just takes away a lot of fear. Just nod if you feel that way. Like, clairvoyance is just, you're just seeing the spiritual information. So I don't feel that this is a good time to run through all the spiritual gifts and what they mean, because we've been speaking a little bit about that recently. So let's use our time to really dive in and talk about how we can open to our gifts. This is what I wrote in the notes, and this is really why I'm here to talk about this, that we all have gifts. No one gift is more important or valid or real than any other gift. All of us are born with gifts, and all of us have a different relationship with our gifts, and some of us have developed them more than others. There's an idea that I heard going to Mind, Body and Soul Expos that either you're a clairvoyant or you're not, and I really want to disagree with that, and I'm going to tell you why. Is that some of us are really born awakened and connected to some of our spiritual gifts, but I've personally experienced a desire to develop a gift, and I've seen that desire open up that pathway to using that gift. Okay, so if you want a gift that you don't have, I have a knowing in my heart, and I want you to check for yourself. Is it okay for me to ask for that gift? I remember feeling very guilty when I asked for the gift to heal. I thought it was wrong. I thought it was selfish. And my work allowed me to perceive things in people that I had no idea what to do with. And what I realize now is that if you have a desire for a gift, it's actually the first indication that you have that gift. I was a healer before I asked for the gift to heal. I just didn't know. Do you know what I mean? So if you have a desire for a gift, it's probably a really strong indication that you either have that gift or you're meant to have that gift. My clan sentience is so strong. I know and trust my knowing, but as I started using my gifts, I kind of wanted to corroborate it with some more information. So I asked to develop my clairvoyance. And what it allowed me to do was to see imagery and to see pictures in my mind that reinforced the knowing that I felt in my tummy. So don't feel like if you've got one that's really strong, you can't ask for more or you can't develop more. Because the reality is that the more we can perceive, the more it strengthens and reinforces the other perception. Does that make sense? Isn't that good news? I don't know. I feel like it's this divine banquet and it's like, what do you want? Like, what would you really ask for if you could ask for anything? So please, as we're going along, I love to make this super organic. And if you have any questions that are coming up or something you want to share, please chime in and write to me in the comment box. So I believe that the more we trust and act on the information we receive, the more we can open to receiving love, prosperity, and soul alignment. And this is really the big thing that I want to focus on is there's trusting our gifts and then there's acting on our gifts. And when we're in a position to act on the information that we receive, it really confirms a level of trust that we have. There is a shadow side to gifts that I am very conscious of, that there are many people who have a knowing, who can spout information, who can share divine interpretations. And yet, if we don't act upon that knowing, it's almost a desecration to that sacred information. Who knows what I'm talking about? Yeah. Because if you've got people who are, say, doing a reading and really sharing some really powerful guidance on someone's life, but they're not applying that for themselves personally, that information can tend to condemn us and to keep us stuck. So for me, my own personal rapport with my gifts has come from a place where I feel so honored to receive any information. I hold myself accountable to acting on it, as scary as that is. Okay? Because I believe the more I can show up and go, I trust it and I know it, and that's why I'm acting on it, the easier I receive it and the easier I can keep acting on it. So I get scared every day. I'm like, oh, I can't believe I'm going to be doing this. And I go, feels good. Because remember, our ego doesn't want us to draw closer to our soul. It fears its own death, and it fears that if we don't listen to its guidance and we turn to our soul for guidance, that it will not be needed any longer. We always need our ego. We always need to know that it's keeping us safe. And many of you know how I talk about learning to honor the ego. But being able to act on the guidance from our gifts actually gets us into closer union and connection with our own soul. And I know you all know the magic that happens when we do that. We really feel loved. We find our purpose and we really find our alignment, which for me leads to prosperity. So I think it's fully a pot of gold. I think spiritual gifts is like this mega treasure trove, and I go, so worthwhile. So let's dive in and talk about some of the experiences that have been really big for us. And I'm not wanting to spend a lot of time here because I know that you have the capacity to heal these big experiences from the past. But no matter what has happened to us, there was a perception formed in that experience that if it's creating pain for us is indicative of a lie and a wound. There's many people who are precognitive or clairvoyant or who receive information around, say, someone is going to pass, and then when they do die, it's very common for these people to turn to self-blame and self-judgment, that because they knew that person was going to pass, it was like they almost were consensual or a part of it happening. These are the sorts of tricky things that can happen when we don't know what our gifts are and we don't have kind of a broad understanding of how everything's operating. So what I find is that people who have spiritually gifted parents are a lot more open and accepting and capable of using their gifts. Now, I wasn't in that position, and so I really respect the people who are not in that position. Even if you've got spiritually gifted parents, their attitudes and perceptions and relationship with their gifts invariably affect our own. So please be very mindful that the ideas that your parents shared about, you know, whether they could trust or rely on it or not, whether it was ridiculous, whether it was stupid, whether it was fantasy, if you picked up on any of those ideas, as with all of my work, I know that we're all the healers of our own hearts, and we can just tune in and go, if that's creating pain in my heart, my tummy, anywhere in my body, I know it's a lie, and I'm going to ask for the truth. So how does that feel? I'm just checking in. So someone is, yeah, cool. So someone's asking, who do I ask? Asking who? I work in every spiritual paradigm and religious construct available, and it doesn't matter who you ask. What matters is that you trust that who you're asking will actually be able to reply to you. So whether that's universal energy or your own soul or your intuition or guide or God or goddess, anything that you know hears your prayers when they're nonverbal, that's who you want to turn to ask for information. And in my experience, who you believe in believes in you and will respond to you. So yeah, it's an open field, people. You know, it's fun to be able to whether Kuan Yin was a real figure or not. When I commune and talk with her, I receive a response. So I trust in that. So whomever you trust, please ask that person. So someone's sharing, I want to be a healer, not sure how. And so you know, as with everything, you know, we use power, but we don't actually know what power is or how it actually works. I said to my husband a few years ago, I'm like, do they know what power is yet? Like, what is power? And he's like, oh no, they still haven't figured that out. And I thought that I was like the only person left on the planet that didn't know what power was. And he's like, you know, all these switches, you know, think about your car. I mean, I'm no mechanic. I don't actually understand how a car actually works, but we still get in it and we still use it. So it's not as important to understand how our gifts operate if you don't want to. If you want to know, you can ask. But we can still use things that we don't understand exactly how they work. How does that sound? So for this person who's sharing that she wants to be a healer, remember my suggestion before that if you have a desire to be a healer, you are probably already a healer. And that this first step that we're going to be talking about soon is about acknowledging our gifts. And my suggestion is to play with the idea of asking within yourself, am I a healer? And waiting for the response. And if you do hear something back, then gently affirm it to yourself. You know, I am a healer. I am clairvoyant. I am clairsentient. I am clairaudient. I am claircognizant. So we're already here in step one. Ta-da! Welcome to step one. Step to developing our gifts, acknowledging them. So for me, you know, if you've ever seen, like my daughter loves to dance, and the other day she had her favorite, you know, the new Moana soundtrack was on, and she was dancing up a storm, and I just stood there and I watched her, and I just said, that is beautiful dancing. And she ran to me, and I just immediately dropped to my knees, and she just embraced me with the biggest hug. That when we actually acknowledge what we're seeing and knowing, it's soul recognition. So when we acknowledge our children for their gifts and their talents, it's the same thing as acknowledging their gifts. So, you know, wow, you've really got a beautiful connection. Wow, you're so wise. Like my son is so wise. And I tell him that it's very important to tell our children that they have these capacities so that they feel safe knowing that they do. It can be very confronting to be a wise child, because sometimes you know things that adults don't know, and that can be a little bit confronting. So once again, for our children and our family and our close friends and ourselves, acknowledging them and just saying, I know that I can help people to heal through the application of my hands. So allow yourself to just admit it. When this happens, if you're feeling any pain or discomfort, that's very indicative of a wound, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. That if we feel fear, or if we're feeling, you know, that real feeling of tension, then there's probably wounding associated with our gifts that it's time for us to allow ourselves to heal. So would you like to play and acknowledge a gift? Because we can't really talk about this without doing it, not when you're with Lysa Black. So go ahead, and any gift that you can own at the present, no matter what that is, just allow yourself to express. I'm really grateful for this gift. I know that I have this gift. I've felt this gift touch my life. In your words, it doesn't matter. Lovely. So someone's sharing, my mother has gifts but has never acknowledged them. She was fearful of them. So this person who's expressing this, very, very important to be able to understand how much that has influenced you and your gifts. Okay, so remember that all wounding is inherited. Okay, and so when we're inheriting that perception as highly sensitives and we're tuning into how other people feel, remember, even empathic children, highly sensitive, many of our gifts actually mean that we can hear the secret conversations that people have with themselves. So if there was a dialogue in an adult's mind about, oh my God, you know, that has just freaked me out, I have to shut it down. And even if they didn't verbalize that, their mere presence would have allowed you to absorb that idea. And then what we do is that we don't know how to challenge these ideas. We look to the adults around us as children. We think they actually know what they're talking about. They think it's actually based on some sort of reality or factual evidence. So there's a little bit of a pause as everyone thinks about sharing what their gifts are. But go ahead and type in, what's a gift that you have, even just one. Now, if you're feeling fear and resistance and it's not pain, I think we all know who that is. It is our ego. Dun, 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 dun. You're not gifted. You think you're so special. You're not special. Shut up and sit down. It's just an example of what my ego says. So if you're hearing that, go ahead and lovingly just acknowledge, yes, ego, I know that you're wanting to keep me safe. I know that you're afraid of what could happen to me if I actually allow myself to admit what I know my gifts are. But for this moment, I feel from my soul that I want to do that. So I'll come back to you later and hear more of your concerns, but for now I feel to share this. So someone is sharing, I have the gift of healing through my hands. Looking back, I thought I was just lucky when someone said that my massage fixed something, or they quite often say that I have magic hands. It makes me so squirmy. Okay, great. If you could tune into that squirminess, the person who's just expressed that, go ahead and listen to the ego ideas. Who are you to think you are so special? That's just what my ego says. So I'll give you my ego dialogue, and you can just really tune in, because this is going to be good when we're moving into this next section of looking at the top 3 fears preventing you. So if anyone hears that coming up now, go ahead and write it down. It'll be so good. Okay, great. Wonderful. Someone's sharing, and this is very diplomatically put. I feel the influence of clan sentience in my life. Very well put. I know this person, and I know that she is clan sentient, and in her wording you can see she is acknowledging and she's honoring, but it's still just a emerging sprout of an idea that she's clan sentient. And so I just want to acknowledge for that person, when you acknowledge the gift, what happens in your inner world? If you could tune into that and just share for us, whether it's squirminess or expansion or comfort or anything else, go ahead and just share with us how you feel, beautiful. Okay, great. Okay, wonderful. So someone's sharing, the only gift I have accepted is that I'm an empath. Other gifts I am too afraid to admit. And it's so important to be honest to ourselves and to admit, acknowledge what you can and start there. So I just really want to acknowledge to that person, that is just wonderful, wonderful work. And you're a very gifted empath, and that's all that matters at this point. And that you can tell the rapport that you have with being an empath is nourishing and supportive, because you can admit that it's there and that you know it. It feels like it has more place within yourself. Whereas sometimes some things happen, you go, what the hell was that? And it can be really confronting, and it's like, I did not just see that. Okay, beautiful. Someone's sharing, I feel the energies in, for example, a house. I don't know what it would be called. So there's actually a few different forms of being an empath, and an empath can feel into people or animals or places or the whole world? I am going to assume I don't have the last one because I wouldn't like that very much. But I want to suggest that this person has a few gifts playing out: high sensitivity, intuitive, and a locational empath, so you can tune into the energy of your environment. So just feel into that. You're all doing really well. Healing comes through my hands and words, very beautifully affirmed. Can you just see that acknowledgement? It's like, this happens. I just see this happening. Beautiful. Look at this wording. I have the gift of clairvoyance and clairaudience, and I'm starting to see that I may be a healer through my hands. This is me clapping in excitement. Can you feel, I just want to express what I'm experiencing. When I feel gifts acknowledged, I feel this little kid inside me is like, and it's just this joyful, enthusiastic appreciation for some of us. Now, there can be these three things happen. You can feel pain and fear. This is indicative of wounding. You can feel resistance, which is indicative of our ego telling us all the reasons why we can't, which is connected to wounding, but a little bit different. Or we can feel that part of ourselves that once it's acknowledged, expands. So coming back to the lady before, I asked her how she felt, claiming and acknowledging her clairsentience, and she says calmness and certainty. Okay, beautiful. And I just wanted to ask so that everyone else could hear her say that, so that we can start hearing about other people's experiences. Okay, my family has always had great gifts on both sides and acknowledged them and supported them. I have the gift of a voice that can heal and communicate, but there has been a lot of wounding from my father. He was a singer, and my ego in the past. Beautifully acknowledged, sweetheart. Beautiful. And so you can see how your wounding is really influencing your ability to use your gift and trust your gift. The best way that I like to think about using our gifts, I just feel to talk about that for just a minute, is I like to think of it as a real co-creative process, that we are the vessel and we're allowing, and that we're kind of working with something greater than ourselves, because you do see the shadow tendency for people to kind of think they're more than by having these gifts and think that they can kind of do things at will, which for me, I never presume that something's actually going to happen just because I want it to, because I'm actually not in charge. So for me, thinking about, flowing along in a river, or thinking about me allowing myself to be the vessel for something greater than me to come through me, really helps me to use my gifts, because my ego loves thinking it's better than anyone else, like everyone else's. And well, I think so. And I really love that the more I've acknowledged my gifts, the more humble it's actually supported me to become. I'm quite proud of how humble I am. No, but jokes aside, I really have found it interesting that I was afraid to acknowledge my gifts because I didn't want to think I was better than anyone else. Okay, so if that's come up for you, that's, the reality is for me, it's been very humbling. Someone sharing, it took me realizing what it was to separate the feelings. I was depressed for many years and I never knew it wasn't my own pain. And we all, the curses that come with our gifts, some people that are clairvoyant, that have the capacity to see spirits, it can be a nightmare. They don't want to see those who have passed over. That there's always kind of a composite side to these things. And the best thing is to accept it, as with all shadow work, is that the light is in the darkness. And I would love to tell you a little bit about developing my mediumship, because that has been very scary for me. And I found out a year ago, someone told me that I could do it. And I'm like, shut up. I can't, I just don't even want to hear anything about that. It's just not even true. And then someone else told me that I had the capacity for mediumship. And I'm like, shut up already. Like, seriously, shut up. I'm not even asking. And what I felt within myself was intense resistance. I'm like, I am not a medium because I do not want to do mediumship. And what was really interesting for me is that my devotion to supporting my clients to heal their own hearts started to become influenced by family members who had passed on. And that's how the heavens tricked me. They tricked me because they knew I'm so devoted to helping my clients to heal their own hearts that some of them actually needed me to support them to communicate with these people who have passed on. So I was kind of conned, do you know what I mean? So anyway, I'm doing it for clients, and I'm like, that was so weird. It was just like a person. It wasn't like a dead person. It was just like a person. I felt like I could feel their heart. They were a little bit different. And so my nana, my father's mother, passed away a few weeks ago, many of you know. And I was like, right, well, I'm going to check in and see how she is. And it was lovely. And what I realized, and this is the point of the story, is that and I'll always get vulnerable and emotional with you all because that's what I do. I never felt like I could trust my family. I never felt like my family members were people that I could turn to and rely on. I never told them the truth about what I felt or what was happening for me. And I didn't want a whole bunch of freaking dead family members that were going to betray me and let me down like my earth family. And so I was like, you know what? I don't want to connect with you all because I don't even want to hear. I don't want to hear about it. I couldn't rely on my living family members, so ancestors and family members who have gone on before, you can all like get out of my, like, I'm not interested. So really the point here is that the wounding that I had around not being able to trust my family affected my capacity to be able to use this gift. And I've come into acceptance of it now because I'm like, right, I can do mediumship. I paid attention that I felt like my nan wanted to connect and I allowed that. It felt weird when I was doing it and I just trusted that it was right. And then acting on the information was a process of allowing her love to flow into my heart and remind me that she really treasures me. And then to be able to offer a prayer of thanks and really thank the heavens for helping me to heal this idea that I didn't want to do mediumship and that I didn't want to talk to any of my ancestors. So I just want to model what we're going to be talking about here. So I'll come back and someone's sharing it. Took me, when someone was kidnapped when I was living overseas, I could feel her feelings and see part of her surroundings, and it totally shook me. But I wasn't able to get a very clear idea of where she was. It terrified me because me and my husband tried to sense her and we could. And this is where, you know, a lot of psychics get involved in crime cases. And, you know, if you have certain capacities, it gives you access to information, which can be very confronting and very challenging. And my personal perception is that we're only shown the information that we need to relay, and that at the end of the day, no matter what happens to everyone, we all pass home safely and are received in love. And that really helps me, and that there's some really not nice things that happen to many of us on the earth, but I trust that they're all going to be received safely home in love. And so you can see by being able to tune into the terror of that experience for that person is that it made it difficult to be able to be with the knowing and receive the information and then be able to know what to do with that information. So a lot of my psychic clients lately have been talking about information that's on the top of the table and information that's below the table. And I kind of get this sense. I was working with a lady and I found out something about her and I knew it was under the table information. It was for me to know and not for me to share. But you kind of can feel the placement when you receive information. Sometimes it's just for you and other times it's information to relay. A big part of the ethics around gifts for me is never imparting information without first asking for permission. So unsolicited psychic information or spiritually discerned information can be very confronting and confusing for people. And so my way around this is just to, if I know that I'm actually meant to relay it, they don't actually need to receive it. We all have choice here. And I just say, would you be happy if I relay something that I'm sensing? And if they say yes, then just share what I share and just leave it. You know, it doesn't have to be fleshed out or understood. Just whatever you perceive, hand it over even if it doesn't make sense to you, and that will be all you need to do. That's all that we need to do. Okay. Yeah, beautiful. I'm glad that you're loving it. This is wonderful. Okay, cool. Okay. Oh, I'm hearing you, beautiful one. I'm hearing you. So someone's just sharing her capacity for mediumship when she was drunk at parties meant that she was relaying too much information and she hurt a few people. And my suggestion for you, beautiful one, is to honor that you do have the gift of mediumship and to forgive yourself for making mistakes. Okay, we all make mistakes. And the only way that I know not to offer unsolicited information is because I offered unsolicited information. and it did not go down well, and it was horrific. I said something to a lady that I shouldn't have, and then she complained about it to another lady, who then seconded me, sat me down, and ripped me apart for about half an hour. So I received the lesson to not relay the information. And what's very important here is to recognize that there was no manual that came with this stuff. We're going to make mistakes with our gifts. But for me, I want to tune in and learn from those mistakes and then forgive myself, okay? So just come back to yourself and place your hand on your heart and say, I'm so sorry that I didn't realize I wasn't meant to share that information. I forgive you for doing that. And then say to yourself, thank you for forgiving me. I allow myself to come back to that knowing and to trust myself as to when to relay it and when to hold it for myself. That our capacity to use our gifts is proportional to the trust that we have with ourselves. And our trust and our relationship with ourselves is very much influenced by our ability to forgive ourselves for past mistakes. So for all of the mistakes that we've all made, full permission, okay, to forgive yourself and allow yourself to come back to just doing your best again. Okay, wow, this is very exciting. Okay, beautiful. Love sharing, love sharing. So now that you have allowed yourself to acknowledge a gift and you've been able to feel how it feels, the second step is to really pay attention to our gifts. And so for someone wanting to develop mediumship, I'd encourage you to watch your daydreams. Watch where your mind goes when you're just going to sleep. That the more we actually pay attention, the more we can actually tune into the information that we are getting. Because the reality is this is a freaking noisy world, okay? The traffic and where you live, I live in the country, and so it's a lot more peaceful, but the kids are watching the iPad in the background, and so for me, earplugs is my savior. I think you all know that I'm big on earplugs and creating quiet space for myself where I can actually really allow myself to tune in. So the more quiet we can become to pay attention to our gifts, the more easily you're going to be able to discern. So what's really nice is that the third step is trusting the information. And trusting the information comes from acting on the information, which is the next step. So this is a catch-22. Okay, so the way I like to think about developing this trust with our gifts is that when you receive something that you can do that no one needs to know about, and it's inconsequential, so it's not like, will I buy this car or not? Will I marry this person or not? Will I have a baby or not? Make it inconsequential. What road will I take to work? Will I talk to that lady or not? What color clothing am I feeling drawn to wear today? Make it inconsequential opportunities and information that you act on, and then something will happen and you go, I never knew that was going to unfold. And it's those moments of acting on it that we actually develop our trust. So see how those two are going to flick back and forth together, reinforcing one another. When we act on the information, like when I really felt into my heart and I felt that my husband was meant for me, and then I acted on that, I just felt a wall go down and I felt love flood in. Not love from my husband, love for myself and divine love, knowing that the heavens were proud of me. So being able to act on the information opens us up to an experience where we can feel feelings confirming that it was right, like many of you have expressed. Last step is giving thanks for the blessings that we have received. So this is the point where I'm going to finish up the recording, and I'm really, really thankful to be here and relay this information with you all and hope that it may bless and serve and support you. So let's dive in and actually get to the live stuff.